Teachers of Reddit. What is the strangest thing one of your students has done in your classroom? My first year teaching high school. There was this kid who always asked me, "Sir, can I throw my chair at the wall?" And I can tell he was serious. The answer was always no. Christmas holidays roll around. Him and his friend were the only ones to show up to class. We're last period before end of the day. Bell goes off. 2 weeks vacation. He asks again. "Sir, can I throw my chair at the wall?" Okay. You get one throw. Merry Christmas. I specified he throw it at a particular brick wall. So nothing was damaged. He put everything he had into it. Fair enough. A kid in my class handed me some scraps of paper and asked if I would throw them away. I looked in my hand and saw what appeared to be ripped up money. Yeah. But it's fake. A kid on the bus was handing them out. He gave me these too. The young man said as he handed me 2 very real $100 bills. It turns out a kid broke into his parents' safe and stole $1,300 of his own family's money so he could hand it out on the bus. This was money that his family was planning to spend on Christmas gifts. This was not at all a wealthy family. Fortunately, it was all recovered. Holy speep. Wasn't my class. But had a friend whose entire class stood up and simultaneously said "butt lickers." And then they all sat down. The hive mind has influenced them. Well, not a teacher and not strangest, but really fed up. 8th grade shop class. Bully kid got into an argument with the teacher and made a comment about his son who had recently died of a heroin overdose. Teacher stared at him for a few moments. Turned red and began shaking. Stormed out of the classroom. Ripped the phone off the wall. Threw it across the shop and locked himself in his office for the rest of class. Everyone was quiet for a while, then started telling him what a horrible asshole he was for saying that. Kids started crying and someone got the principal, who took us to the gym until next period. Not often I'd say a kid deserves to feel like speep. This is definitely one of the few moments. Not a teacher. It was in 4th grade. Somebody came in with a snack and a bottle of hot sauce. And when finished with the snack, downed bottle. What happened next? What happened next will warm your heart. And your butthole. I had a student who was new to the class and didn't speak English. In his first few days in the class, I looked around and didn't see him. I had a moment of panic, but then happened to look down. He was sitting under his desk eating an entire ear of corn. He just looked at me and gave me the biggest smile. I had to let the man finish his meal. How old was he, if I could ask? Because that's either hilarious or very sad. He was 8. Okay, so not too crazy, lol. A 1st grade girl was making a tiara during free draw time. I teach art. She apparently couldn't figure out how to attach a strip of paper long enough on the front of the tiara she drew and cut out. So she ended up gluing it to her forehead. She was super proud when she showed me. One problem at a time. 6th grader. Who the week prior told me he was getting moved to honors science. Stuck a paper clip in a light socket that caused a very short-lived fireball. Another time an 8th grader asked, "When you die, how long before you become a ghost?" Before I could answer, his friend with the utmost confidence said, "Yeah, after 10 years. I couldn't get him to divulge his source for such information. The first story reminds me. My friend was known to the teachers at my middle school as the kid whose older brother stuck a paper clip in a socket in the band room. There really isn't much to that story. It was a rest day after a concert. His brother stuck a paper clip into an electric socket. Ambulance got called. And he was okay. I never got a clear answer for why he did it. Probably because middle schoolers are dumb. But at the beginning of both years of middle school, the teacher would go down the class roster, pause at his name, and go, "Is your brother the one who tried to electrocute himself in the band room a few years ago?" The band teacher just told him that the sockets are off limits for him because of his brother. As a student, the strangest thing I've ever had seen from a teacher was in my 8th grade science class. The lady always had the blinds closed and cabinets locked. We got this sub who looked like he was 20, and he asked us all why it said on the teacher notes to not open the windows and cabinets under any circumstances. We all told him we didn't know, and so he went to open the windows and under the blinds. They were covered in pitch black paper that she taped over the windows. Inside, all the cabinets were empty. After that, all the kids starting questioning what her motives were for that and if she was a vampire. Never have caught such a weird vibe as her before. That's freaking hilarious. I'm just imagining her playing the long con, knowing that she would eventually have to call in sick, and decided to screw with everybody's minds. Once she comes back, the students ask her why the cabinets were empty. Wait, they're empty now? My boss was printing out photos of all of us to put up on a staff board and accidentally printed one that was way too large. I jokingly asked if any of the kids wanted it, and one of the kindergartners raised his hand, so I gave it to him and forgot about it. Weeks later, he wasn't able to fit some things in his backpack due to everything just being crammed in there. The first thing I did was have him take everything out of his backpack so we could start over. He starts pulling out all these wrinkled drawings, bent folders, and everything else he had stuffed in there. He then proceeds to pull out my headshot. In absolutely pristine condition, not a wrinkle on it. He lays it on the ground, smooths it out, shoves everything back in his backpack haphazardly, and carefully places my picture back in the backpack. It was so weird but funny that me and my boss still laugh about it to this day. That is so sweet. A boy kept kicking a girl's desk. So she took her desk and placed it on top of the boy's desk while he was on a bathroom break, asserting dominance the right way. Megadesk. Found a male student masturbating into a Mountain Dew bottle during a standardized test. Was it Mountain Dew Whiteout? Snuck in at night, removed ceiling tiles and suspended all on the desks from the rafters with rope. Pulled out a can of snuff and said, I if I show you this, can you write me up so I can go home? Ate a fish out of my fish tank neon tetra. Caught a bat, it was sleeping, hanging from a ceiling tile with those pincher stick things you use to pick up, chased other students around with it. I teach high school science. The bat. I feel bad for the poor thing, but the image in my head is so funny. Middle school teacher here. Had a girl come into homeroom, open her backpack, take out a fully inflated balloon which has taken up a lion's share of the space in her backpack. I don't remember if she had actual supplies with her that day, and began hitting her friend over the head with it. I couldn't stop laughing. That kid is going places. It may be off to clown college, but she is definitely going places. I once had a slightly drunk student ask another student to marry him. He got a bit of a cheer, but she turned him down. Why was he drunk? Probably 'cause he was drinking some sort of alcoholic beverage. Nah. That can't be it. Legit, has a kid try to eat my aloe plant. A student of mine wiped feces all over the whiteboard several days in a row while everyone was at lunch. Finally someone caught her. She was taken to the counselor's office and admitted she was being raped by a member of her family. She got help. It was so awful to think she was going through that. I'm glad she got help. Why must I only pick one? Okay, I love this story. I had the kid sitting on the rug completely silent while I was writing the morning message I teach young elementary. Out of nowhere one of my students yells, "Ride that bitch." I was crying. Trying so hard not to laugh. I called his mom later and had to repeat what he had said without laughing. She said, "Where did he learn that?" I'm married to a woman. Why are you asking me? I have no idea. I have like 50 more stories. But that one always makes me smile. Can you tell those other 50 stories? Yes. We want a novel. I'd buy it. 51 Extremely Concerning School Stories. Written by you/JLG113113. Play with a raccoon penis bone at their desk nonchalantly during class. Just a kid ballin' with his baculum. Student here. We had to make a model of a cell. Fills a condom with grapes, other fruits, and water and calls it a day. This was an in-class activity. This was an in-class activity. Meaning this kid had a condom with him at school and didn't give a speep if anyone else knew it. Legend. You should always have a condom with you. Just in case. And it should not be something to be ashamed of. I do, but it keeps sliding off and landing in my shoe. A kid once left the class. Speep on the floor outside and then picked it up and smeared it on the windows. I've heard smearing feces is a sign of sex abuse, although I can't say for sure. Hopefully this was just a sign of half-grown primate is mad. Teacher. Have you ever killed anyone? Ha ha ha, no sweetie. You can tell me. I won't tell anyone. She was a first grader. I was a sub for a middle school right out of college. 7th grade study hall. Student asked me if I knew what a McGangbang was. Pretty hard to keep a straight face when asked that. Turns out it's when you put a McChicken between two McDoubles. Who knew? It's in one McDouble. You're supposed to put it in between the patties. It's messy. I personally order and assemble it with a junior chicken. Extra pickles on the McDouble. That makes the whole sandwich monstrosity cost $5.69 Canadian. Whereas a single McChicken here costs like $5.49 just by itself. I have no idea what the cost difference is elsewhere. For assembly to make it less dry, I take off the bottom buns with no condiments. So my preferred way goes. Top bun with McDouble toppings. 2 patties. Chicken chunk. Junior chicken condiments. Top bun. I just throw out the bottom buns. Basically, it's the cheapest way to be a dirtbag without getting your fingers too greasy. It's extremely filling for cheap. I love it. I have screenshot this and am now stumbling my way to McDonald's at 2:48 in the morning. 1. Me. Name a negative impact of a dam. Student. You get a whoopin'. 2. I also had a kid watch porn on his phone one time. Just a couple years ago. My math teacher talked to the class, explaining that there was a missing student who had gotten suspended. The conversation then shifted to the kinds of things that were appropriate in class and at school, ending it with, if you're going to watch porn, for the love of God, at least do it at home, and not on your school computer. It's crazy how people are so bold nowadays. Bold stupid. Not super strange or out rare. But I have one from my substitute teaching days. This second grader straight up pulls out a Nintendo DS and starts playing Pokémon Platinum in the middle of math time. I mean, I get it. I would also have rather been playing Pokémon. But still. Years later I still think about the balls on that kid. He never tried to hide what he was doing. Had the volume up and all. And he seemed genuinely perplexed as to why what he was doing was a problem. Man has priorities. Brought a live turtle they found to school. WTF did they want me to do with it? Freaking 8:00 a.m. and I am outside trying to release this thing in a way it doesn't die. Had students pair up and have a discussion on some geography related topic. One student was odd man out and he decided to have both sides of the conversation with himself. It was so weird, a pair of girls asked him what the hell he was doing and they invited him to join their group. Smart kid. Knew what he was doing the whole time. Not strange per Southeast mom was an elementary school teacher. Another teacher whose classroom was down the hall decided to let the kids watch a film near the end of the school year as a reward. Kids decide on Beauty and the Beast and one kid brings in the VHS from home in the Beauty and the Beast box. This was in the 90s with the carts you roll into the classroom. She gets the video going. Goes back to her desk and kids are screaming. She tells them to behave and knock it off or no more movie. They don't stop. She goes to the cart and it turns out the kids' parents put their sex tape in the box to hide it. The kid was mortified and of course, as all of us know, teachers never really knew how to work those carts, so she fumbled to turn it off quickly. Very awkward call home to the parents to come pick up the video. This was on the parents. Hide that stuff in a place that children are likely to check. I was gonna say. Next time hide it in das Boot. Hilarious. I know. What were they thinking? We will never know. Hope that kid turned out okay. Not a teacher. But back when I was in high school, a classmate of mine filled a condom with water and threw it at the teacher. What happened after that? You can't just leave us hanging like that. He got suspended for a month. It wasn't anything fascinating afterwards. Really. Ex-education support worker. Kids are usually pretty tame when I'm around. As a student though. Oh boy. Usual public school all boys class things. Set the gas heater on fire by filling it with an entire can of aerosol deodorant and turning it on. Gaffer taping someone to a chair. Then building a pyramid of chairs around him, using every other chair in adjoining classrooms. Hiding all the furniture. Seeing what the biggest item is you can manage to throw at the ceiling fan without getting caught. Math textbook usually does the job of nearly knocking it clean out the roof. Yelling change places. Everybody gets up and changes seats as quickly as possible, then pretends nothing happened. Suddenly throwing your school bag out the nearest open window. Followed by yourself. Bonus points for not touching the frame or being above ground level. Only one of us ever managed to do it without the teacher noticing. A lot of teachers refused to teach our group. The ones who did usually regretted it. Gaffer taping someone to a chair. Then building a pyramid of chairs around him, using every other chair in adjoining classrooms. This gotta be a ritual to the sun god. Or chair god, whichever came first. In the lunchroom. Kid slapped another kid across the face with a slice of breakfast pizza and a fight ensued. Do you know how hard it is to be the adult and not laugh after watching breakfast pizza be used as a weapon? What is a breakfast pizza and why are people having pizza for breakfast? It's just pizza with sausage, and it's because the school system is crap when it comes to providing our kids with nutritional food. I have a you can eat in my class as long as the food isn't loud. At any time if your food disturbs me or your peers, your privilege is gone policy. Most of the time. Zero issues. Everyone agrees no chips or anything crunchy is allowed. No cans of soda etc. Most kids have a sandwich or a banana. At worst. Allowed apple. One kid. Well. He didn't break the rule. But it totally f***ed me up. I'm lecturing about whatever. And right there in the front row. This kid is eating an orange like an apple. Peel and all. No noise. But I couldn't get over the fact that he was chewing up the orange peel like it was the best part of the orange. I had to stop lecture and literally address him. Like. You eat the peel, dude. What the foo heck? I didn't want to embarrass him or anything. But I could not really let go of it. It was bizarre. Later I learned some cultures are pro-peel eating. Weird. I recently learned that the peel and white pith is very nutritious. Yes, for a goat. Your stomach probably couldn't get all the nutrition out. Also this I know for sure. Orange peel tastes horrendous, very bitter. Yes, for a goat. I got the biggest giggle from this. I am an aide teacher for first grade. I mainly just help the kids in the classroom while the teacher does her part. This one kid. Insanely creative. Made tiny bouncy balls from glue sticks. Not really strange. But it was something I found fascinating. I'm a college professor. We do everything remotely now. Students send in their assignments and tests by scanning with their phones. One student sent in his math midterm. But wasn't wearing pants. Every picture was 80% calculus. 20% accident. We'll never know. He did well on the math. I have one class that I dearly miss. They always made me laugh. One day I was in the hallway for passing period. Suddenly I hear many voices loudly whisper my name. I turn and the class acts like nothing happened. After 2 or 3 times they tell me the class ghost is calling me. I have to admit their coordination was impressive. Jimmy the ghost became the excuse for a lot of things in that class for the rest of the year. My students fill out a short questionnaire at the beginning of the school year. One of the questions is, what is your favorite snack? It seems innocent enough until I remember I've had answers ranging from petroleum jelly to dead skin. Had a child draw a stick figure with her hands on her chest doing the chicken dance. It looked like boobs. Full stop. Kids can be amazing. Laughed about it for a week. She was adamant and scared that she didn't mean it. I've had a student once meticulously lick the entire metal carriage legs and book holder of the school desk because he said I like how it feels so cool on my tongue. I teach primary. So it usually ends up being an impossible career goal. When I grow up, I want to be a mermaid. When I grow up, I want to be a tree. When I grow up, I want to be a dinosaur. That kind of thing. You usually get at least 1 or 2 a year in the early grades. These are the things that should be kept and ceremonially given back to the students on graduation. Congratulations on your offer from MIT. Do you still want to be a tree? You've been offered a full-ride scholarship to the university of your choice. However, we have it noted when you were 6 that you wanted to be Spider-Man when you grew up. Due to wanting to make dreams come true, we've rescinded the offer and instead signed you up for an intro entomologist class at the local zoo. Congratulations. Nonverbal child randomly yelling bitch once or twice a week. I was a ta in a special ed school 20 years ago. Most of the kids had some degree of ASD. This one kiddo, C, was 5 or 6 years old and was not technically nonverbal because he could speak. But anything he said was completely out of context and usually from Winnie the Pooh. There was a field trip. And C had a major meltdown on a little tram/open train thing that was taking us from the zoo to the parking lot. The art teacher, a middle-aged guy, was holding him to keep him from jumping off the tram thing. C stopped screaming for a second, looked this dude dead in the eyes, and whispered, "Kiss it, Grandma." Not even the art teacher could hold it together at that point. Hey. Autistic adult here. That's called echolalia. And a lot of partially verbal autistics do it to some extent. Student here. I was in class when a teacher told a kid that they would never be anywhere better than McDonald's. The kid looked at her and said without a beat, "When you come though the drive-through, 'cause we all know you do. I am going to eat your fries." Subbing. Had a little first-grade girl crying over her math paper. I said, "It's not that bad. I can help you. First step is just pick up your pencil." She just cries harder. Won't even put her hands on the desk to pick it up. Finally, I asked to see her hands. They were completely bound together with gum. Palms pressed together and each finger stuck solidly to the corresponding finger on the opposite hand. Wrapped tightly in pink gum. She couldn't get them apart. Ada. Literally caught with gum in class. I taught high school students labeled emotionally disturbed. I had a freshman boy who was he started closing himself in the 3FT by 4FT classroom cabinet. He started it as a joke and I playfully tossed his worksheet in after him. He didn't come back out for 20 minutes and did the worksheet while sitting inside. After that, it was his assigned seat. I'd check on him throughout class. He explained that being in a darker place and not having to sit by people made him feel better. Whatever works, I guess. In high school my mom had a chaise longue delivered to the house. And the box it came in was humongous. I set it on the driveway and crawled underneath it with my homework, my cell phone, and a glass of lemonade. Then I just did my homework. I felt happy and safe under there. And I vehemently denied being crazy to anyone who asked. I'm still not crazy. But it turns out I have an anxiety disorder. I was trying to calm myself down by controlling my environment. It totally worked for a while. 2. Not as a teacher but as a student. Freshman year speech 1001 class. One girl said that she was supportive of people and animals being together sexually. It was awkward and later made a speech about it. That's kinda disturbing. Gotta have principles. No. This thread just asked for teachers. Not a teacher, but student at the time. Seen multiple people jack off in class and one girl shove a teacher's pencil she borrowed up her fanny. 8. Hold up. Are you British or not? British indeed. Okay. Just checking. Fanny is a different hole across the pond. Haha. I had a kid stand up from the back row. Walk up to a student in the front row. Bite him. Then go sit back down and act like nothing happened. I also had a kid obviously bite the screen of a school-issued Chromebook. Not sure what it was about biting at that place. Years ago, I had a student that would talk to the bushes outside of our window. He would look out the window and say things like, "Did you hear what she told us to do?" He was never violent but he talked to things that were not there all the time. And he talked out loud to them. I also had a parent tell me that her daughter would stand on the coffee table to hit her in the face. She wanted to know what we would do to make that stop if a child liked doing that. One of my kindergartners picked up a wayward Cheerio and ate it. I tried to stop him, saying, "Braden, don't eat food off the floor. That's where germs live." He just grinned and responded, "No. Miss A. That's where yummy stuff lives." There was a 6-year-old that was obsessed with YouTube and his parents didn't see a problem with it. He kept interrupting class to yell Hitler did nothing wrong. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Pretty uncool during story time. My boomer boss wouldn't let me talk to his parents either because she didn't understand the references or the context of the kid's behavior. Well, do you really have to catch a reference for the Hitler one? I mean, context actually makes it better. I know. Right? My boss rationalized it as he must be learning about history and hasn't developed a moral compass yet. I tried to convince this lady for about 45 minutes that the kid's problem was unfettered access to YouTube. But no dice. I missed the part in history where Hitler did nothing wrong. But then again, there are always edgelords in middle school. What, like the time a first grader ran back and forth across the room trying to stick twigs in the electrical sockets? Or when a fourth grader said, "Are you lesbian?" Or when a fifth grader shouted that her friend was bleeding and the friend said under her breath, "Just from my pussy." Well, are you? Just from the pussy. From the student's perspective. One time our class was being extra disruptive. And the teacher was getting fed up. She asks a question the class regarding the material we were learning and no one is really paying attention. Just talking. And she raises her voice making it go silent as one kid just lets a barrage of farts rip just as the class got quiet. She looks at him astounded and rhetorically asks the class if we're done. Almost immediately a kid across the room stands up and let an even louder and longer fart rip. The timing was so perfectly comedic that she couldn't help but laugh despite her own anger. Apparently whenever she does that lecture now, it's known as the flatulence lecture. They added unnecessary apostrophes to their words. Additional apostrophes can't be that bad. Righty. THYSHOULDNTHAVEBEENTHATB add. Not a teacher. But in 7th grade a kid with anger management issues got enraged when another classmate stuck a post-it note on his back. He picked up a chair and proceeded to charge the student who put the sticky note on. Chaos ensued. Everyone was running around. The angry kid emerged from the crowd, trousers at the ankles, someone most likely pantsed him. It was like a circus. Last one. One of my students accused Mike Mulligan of smoking crack in the basement. Not a teacher, but I'm a student. Once 3 dudes decided to beat their meat in class to see who could come the fastest. They didn't even hide it, the whole class knew what they were doing and the teacher looked confused. Because she probably didn't expect to see some weird speep like that ever in her life. Student here. I once arrived at school to find out other students were played dodgeball. With peep ing chairs. Hitting behind table and throwing chairs around. Stayed outside until the director showed up, giving the whole class a lesson of few pages to write on how to behave. I end getting away with it since I did not participate. Not that weird. But funny, I asked. What are Oedipus's positive qualities? And a kid replied. He really loves his mommy. We all died. Constantly talking about her made-up fantasy world, including people with butts and genitalia for faces. Drawing animals being tortured and giggling about it. Asking people if she could chew their hair. Eating her own body fluids. Threatening suicide. Refusing to talk and meowing like a cat and rolling on the floor like one. Said she had sex with her cat. I really hope she's been able to get help with her social skills and mental health since then. That's just flat out scary. You don't have to have a PhD in psychology to know what's going on in her home. Not a teacher but was a student. I saw a kid poop in the class in front of everyone. We were in 3rd grade. He was apparently doing it in his pants. A janitor came to our class with a mop and called him out. This kid was wearing short trousers and was pooping the entire time. When he was walking up the staircase to get to out class, our school has 5 stories. The little nuggets rolled down his clothes and fell on the stairs, and the janitor saw it. When the kid got up to go with the janitor, more nuggets fell and the teacher and everyone was just in shock. I can't remember every detail, but I can remember someone laughed and some said ew. Also, for everyone wondering, the reason we didn't smell it was cause the kid just got into the class and sat down, and 4 seconds later the janitor came and then we began to smell it. Probably not the strangest, but one kid lifted up his giant string bass and yelled, "I'm a harpoon." One hyper 12-year-old got his penis out and said, "What do you think, sir?" It was a small class of 8 kids. He was the only boy. All the girls just laughed their heads off. I replied, "I think you should put the little mouse back in the house." More laughing. And he immediately put it back in and we got on with the lesson. I didn't report it because A, I genuinely didn't think he could help it, and B, he would have been beaten with a stick. One doing a Fortnite dance in front of the class, saying he was bored while I was filming for the EdTPA. 2 robbing the classroom of the teacher's laptop, and almost got away with my wallet. 3 110-year-old called another a FING monkey Latina student to a black student. 4 being punched in the middle of an elementary school. I didn't finish my teaching degree. Screw that. I was a teacher for about 10 years, so I have a lot of these. A student was making a weird face in the back of the class and I could see his legs rubbing. Found out later he masturbated every class, including mine. Every class. This kid has stamina. Got his brother to bring in their elephant. I worked in a school that was basically in the jungle in Thailand. It was very common for people in that village to own a couple of elephants. Decided to use the opportunity to teach animal anatomy and got the kids to paint on various organs and bones before we took the elephant, along with some others, down to the river next to the school to wash them off. Not a teacher but a kid once said to our science teacher, "I just believe in religion more than science. Pretty sure the water cycle doesn't have much to do with many religions. Jesus and his wine would like to talk." Not a teacher, but a student used a teacher's scarf and masturbated with it at the back of the class cause he liked the smell of perfume the teacher had. Ayo, what? He even once sniffed Kool-Aid for fun. He was one weird MF. I had an emotional support student blow up a balloon that he had clutched in his fist. Every time I would approach him, he would inhale the air and keep the balloon clenched in his fist. I demanded that he hand it to me, but he refused and I had to get his support aide to retrieve it from him. Turned out to be a used condom that he found outside the school. OMG, I almost puked. Some kid mimed jerking off to a female teacher and got caught. So, the teacher took him and made him repeat the action in the middle of the staff room. Kid kept saying people hate him because he was Muslim. He was very sad about it. After investigating some pictures he drew, it turned out his dad would make him watch 9/11 Twin Tower attacks constantly and was grooming him to hate America. Obviously CPS was called. Not a teacher but my wife is. Earlier this week a 2nd grader yelled out in the middle of a test, "I love cocaine and beer." I had a group of 7th graders who kept saying that's gay, so I told them they couldn't say that. They started saying that straight to get a rise out of me and I ignored it and didn't do anything. The group of kids tried arguing that I was homophobic because I would let them say that's straight. The downside to some Gen Z kids is that they know a bunch of activist terms but abuse the hell out of them. It's just as harmful to abuse the terms than to ignore them. Was told to me by a teacher. A kid with autism was in his class. The kid was staring him straight down the whole time and was slowly wiggling his body in his seat. He tried not to acknowledge it and continued with the lesson. After the class left, he noticed a piece of poop directly under where the kid was sitting. This beast of a child managed to poop and maneuver the feces straight down, past his underwear and pant leg, to hit the floor. Rolled a 20 on sleight of hand. You know the kids that nervously nibble on whatever they're writing with? One of my 8th graders accidentally swallowed the entire cap of his big pen. Hi, Mrs. Student Mama. You're gonna need to come pick up your son. The gene pool is shallow and you need to take him to the ER. Student here, but we had a kid in a 7th grade math class just take it out and have a wank. No encouragement. No stimulation, just felt like rubbing one out. The worst part was that he didn't even bother hiding it. It took about 2 minutes for someone in the back row to notice the kid was jacking off next to him, and word spread quickly from there. About 3 minutes later the teacher notices, and as she is walking over he looks her dead in the eye and busts the fattest butt you have ever seen. Like, this kid must have had blue balls for months to have a load like that. Single-handedly made all the guys jealous and girls awed in a single nut. But I digress. He was suspended for obvious reasons, and to this day senior now he is known as the Fat Ass Nut Kid. That's a fairly decent nickname as far as they go. Not a teacher, but in my middle school some kids tore the sink off the wall in the men's bathroom. Oh God, I got a good one. I have a boy in my class who is a pretty cool guy, but he is often on another planet. Daydreams a lot and just can't focus. But sometimes he just does weird stuff. He will call out the strangest things randomly. We'll go on brain breaks, more body breaks for him, and then find a spoon to dig in the dirt behind our class. One day he was walking back to his desk past a friend. Gets right up in his friend's face and then walks away. From the angle I was at, it looked like he gave his mate a big ol' smooch. The friend was horrified and amused all at once. His face was hilarious. The dude can't explain what he'd done or why. It was just a moment of his. I had a special needs student in year 2 who hid under a table because he didn't like relief teachers. I managed to coax him out with the promise of friendship and getting to sit on the teacher chair at her desk, to keep an eye on the other kids and make sure they behave. After around 30 minutes or so, I looked and he was reading out a phone number taped to the teacher's desk, while another kid he had called up was dialing it into the phone. Alarmed, I asked what he was doing, and he said phoning this person's parents. Because they are not doing what you told them, and you can't have that. Oh my God. I'm a teacher in elementary school. But all the strange situations happened in children's camps. 1. We played competitions. For the game, the teams needed the usual shoelaces. I give one shoelace to the boy, turn around to pass the other, and hear a scream. Turns out the kid I gave the shoelace to started choking another boy on the team, pretending he was a cowboy riding a horse. Lol. 2. One day I went into the children's room and saw that the boy was lying naked on the windowsill. I said, "What the f***?" And he said, "I'm tanning." 3. The incident did not happen to me, but to a colleague. The children from his squad decided to have fun in an adult way. They locked themselves in a room, get undressed, and the boy shoved the comb right up the girl's ass. The doctor was already pulling her out. Not a teacher. But a few days ago one of my classmates went on Pornhub while in a lesson. My school aggressively cancelled senior pranks my senior year because the year before some of the farmer kids brought a pickup truck full of balloons full of horse piss last day and threw them all over the teachers' cars. It was a hot sunny day. Many of their windows were cracked. A student here. I don't know if it's strange, but here goes my story. My friend always took many milk boxes in the 3rd grade. They were like 200 ml and free. One time he didn't have any place to put them, so he put one on his desk and played with it. You could unfold little flaps on the sides that held the box. He made a phone out of it and placed it flat on the desk. The thought it was a good idea to hit it cause it acted like a jello. One time he hit it too hard and the front exploded. Milk was everywhere. He had to go to the cleaning lady and clean it all up himself. It took him 15 minutes to clean and got scolded. One of my first year university students called me old once accidentally. I'm 30. Maybe the part where bathing was a monthly event. Used an apostrophe to make a noun plural. I had a co-worker whose student pulled down his pants to prove he wasn't wearing tidy whities. Was wearing tidy whities. He got written up and everyone confirmed something that didn't matter. Strange choice. Not a teacher. One time in class, a kid with blatant mental disabilities whipped his Johnson out and busted some whipped cream on a girl sitting next to him. Well, not in the classroom. We had gone outside for a mask break. The 4 students I had at the time decided to bring jump ropes. They were playing double dutch and helicopter and whatnot until I gave them the 5-minute warning. At 5 minutes they split off into each just jumping on their own. Enter my 5-year-old kindergartner who doesn't really know how to jump rope, so I show them with a few jumps of my own, and on their first attempt went from vertical to horizontal in about half a second. After my brain processed that they are probably in pain and need a band-aid and ice and a phone call to parent we have to call regardless of severity of head injury, I realized that there were only 2 explanations for this. 1, they tripped themselves in the air whilst attempting to jump rope. Or 2, in an effort to get over the rope, dove forward over it and landed like they were diving into a pool. I have no idea which one happened and no tears shed, so I didn't really have time to question due to the phone call I made. TLDR. Kid trips themselves with a jump rope while jumping. Student story. Had a fellow student leave to go to the bathroom. He left his phone behind and unlocked with Discord open. Not sure if this was done on purpose, but I doubt it. My friend glanced over and saw a furry ERP server. Same student was arrested a few years later for harboring CP. And I later found out he used to pay freshman girls money so he could feel them up. Glad karma kicked in. Not a teacher. But when I was a student in high school we had an English teacher who was very Ben Stein-esque and monotone soft-spoken voice. Very laid back. So a lot of people sort of worked ahead once we knew what the basic task of the lesson was. Or others dozed off. As long as people got their work done, he didn't mind. One time I was running to get into the class and one of my classmates uttered the famous phrase "Run Forrest run." I had never seen Forrest Gump before that moment, and I was very perplexed at the reference. My classmates asked if I had ever seen the movie, and when I said no, many shocked faces and laughs were made. I was a complete bookworm, and didn't really care for movies much except for music movies. My teacher decided to add some movie culture into the class. So we watched Forrest Gump. The rest of that week in class was not part of the lesson plan or curriculum, and then related it to what we were already learning about. Teachers. Jesus Christ. Up. Teacher here at one time. Adults aged 40 coming from a deprived socio-economic background learning how to use computers. Similar to ECDL course but more interactive with the tutor. Starting from page 1 of computers. I had to simulate by tapping their hands how to do a double click, for example. I saw plenty of tears of frustration that they've forgotten how to log on. They forgot to save work from last week that was just on there in the Word program, and lots of other smaller instances. But the most memorable part was my head of department one day just storming into a class of adults quietly working. Looking at me defiantly and then barking out. Anyone caught downloading Eminem songs on the college computers will be expelled immediately. Silence. Just silence. She looks a bit mad and confused. I am confused, but this was back in the day when tabloids in the UK just make up any old speep and Eminem was the whipping boy at the time. So it clicked that she's parroting tabloid bull's peep instead of looking at the actual context that you'd hope that someone in education would, and understanding the bigger picture regardless of whether it matches your musical taste. What a cunt. Ah yes, Eminem lyrics, she fumbled, that word should not be downloaded. That applies to staff as well as students. Again silence. No response. I am going grey man here, so low has she sunk I am my eyes. She's now threatening me as well with her bull's peep. After a few seconds she possibly realizes she's made a massive dick of herself and walks out quietly. Or maybe she doesn't realize. I exchange looks with the rest of the class and they just turn back to their work. We watched one of the teachers from the classroom. He was out smoking a dart in the garden. He crouched down and had a full conversation with a shrub. This just happened to me last week. And keep in mind that I'm a high school teacher. I was helping one of my students via Zoom in my classroom. So I wasn't wearing a mask or anything. And this student walks in. Walks quickly back by my desk. And sits on the floor next to my desk and says, "Shoes." So after putting on my mask quickly, I said, "You want to see my shoes?" And I showed him my shoes. Then he says, "Feet." And I told him that I have to keep my shoes on. But he grabbed my foot and took my shoe off. Then he said, "Foot." Floor. At this point I was very confused and a little flustered. So I said, "My feet are already on the floor and you shouldn't be touching my feet." But he just repeated, "Foot." Floor. And he grabbed my foot to see the bottom of it. And poked the bottom of my foot. Then, before I could even process what on earth was going on, he walked to the door, put on some hand sanitizer, and left. The whole interaction probably lasted about a minute or two. It was so bizarre. And I felt super embarrassed because the student in Zoom heard the whole interaction but couldn't see what was happening. I had all my students violently attack me as a mob on multiple occasions. There are few things more humbling than being tackled to the ground by a group of 11-year-olds. What happened to them? About 7 years ago or so, I had a middle school student who wanted me to play wingman for a guy she had a crush on. I told her no because it's a bad idea. She said she needed to get a boyfriend soon because she's scared of going on The Bachelor to find her true love. Kind of felt sorry for her. There is an old blog about a special ed teacher who told tales of what her students did. My favorite was the touch me not kid who was caught naked in the restroom taking a speep in the trash can. If I remember correctly. Blog was kind of famous and very entertaining. My sister is a high school teacher and she told me a story that happened a few years ago. She heard a strange buzzing sound and found that it was coming from a student's book bag. It was a vibrator that the girl stole from her stepmother. Obligatory student not teacher. When I was in I think 11th or 12th grade. I was sitting on a bench waiting for first hour to start with other people I shared the class with. Shortly after this guy walks up to us and he is apparently a friend of one of the people there. He opens his backpack right in front of me and inside it was a real live guinea pig. The guy literally brought a guinea pig to school in his backpack. He left right after. What became of that? I had a kid who told me that the first manuscript of Harry Potter came to the US on the Titanic. I had to pause for a minute to think about everything that was wrong with that statement. A fifth grader. When told to wait a few minutes before heading to the restroom, not my student. Got up. Went to the janitor's mop bucket. And proceeded to take a dump right there. It was in the hallway. Yes. Dozens of kids witnessed it. Not the strangest, but any chance I get to share my potato chip poot story is a good one. One of my beloved kiddos loved the gross no-name hot chips they sold at lunch and indulged every day or thereabouts. One day he came back to class and was just ripping farts. I started laughing, I couldn't help it. My aide goes, "Jesus Christ. Son. Those are potato chip poots," and we used that saying for the rest of the year. That was a fun class. From last year. 11th grade. This one kid, Billy, came late every day. The buses suck, so I know that was part of the reason. He strolls in late one day like usual, but this time offers an apology, saying he had to get breakfast. No problem, I tell him. It really wasn't. I didn't mark him late because he would have gotten detention and I didn't want that. My boy pulls 3 Cool Whip containers out of his backpack. I figured that there was something breakfast related in there, so I stopped to watch. He takes the top off the first one and it colored Cool Whip. He produces a spoon and eats the entire tub. I move on. Helping other kids. Doing my thing. I hear the distinct rrrrpppt of a lid being removed, and sure enough, my boy is now digging into the second tub, which had a greenish tint to it. He demolishes that whip as well. I think he cannot possibly go on to the third, but he does. To be fair, we had a block schedule and it was now like an hour after the first one. This appears to be regular OL Cool Whip. He must have gotten full because he offered the rest to Tommy, who is one of my all-time favorite kids. Super savvy. Tommy looked at the dregs of the Cool Whip, looked directly at me, and we both smiled at each other. Tommy very politely says, "No, Billy. Thanks. I had enough to eat this morning. You enjoy it?" So Billy chowed on down. When the bell rang, he deposited all 3 empty tubs into my trash and exited. Tommy looked at the trash, looked at me, and we both just started laughing. We never spoke of the Cool Whip again. Happy Reddit birthday. Brought out a gun and said on the ground, "Everyone." A colleague of mine was convinced by his year 11 math class to order in KFC on their last lesson before study leave and exam period, and in the 5 minutes he and a student went to meet the delivery driver. The rest of his class had put all the desks and chairs in the cupboard, removed the whiteboards off the walls and brought them into my classroom, and were sitting in their rows watching the movie projected onto the wall like nothing had happened. I was going to answer seriously, but I think I'll just give you an F for butchering that poor apostrophe. Obligatory. Not a teacher but someone in my math class either watched some P-Hub or played the P-Hub intro. 2 fish are in a tank. One turns to the other and says, "How do you drive this thing?" One of my students passed his prosthetic leg around the classroom whilst I was writing on the board. Not the teacher but one of the students. One day we got really bored in class, then on kid shout earthquake. Then the whole class just start fake panicking and rolling on the floor and ran out the door. I taught at a school with mostly Jewish kids that was across the street from a Planned Parenthood center. That combination led to condoms filled with matzah. Not the teacher. But my father is a high school world history teacher at a private school. When he taught my graduating class, one of the kids made it a big deal that it was his birthday, but not in a party kind of way, and challenged him to an arm wrestle. This kid did hit the gym rather often, but his ego was much larger than his strength. Now, my dad is not a small guy. He was very much a part of the bodybuilder group in high school, and he often had to get shirts refitted because his shoulders were too big. His arms are still as wide as my thighs, and I bike whenever occasion permits. So, he obliged with the arm wrestle, and even let someone else record it. The match starts, and the kid starts going at it. Hands do not budge. So, he goes harder. The hands wiggle a tiny bit, but still straight up. After a bit, the kid is holding onto the table while trying the pull with his entire body. And here, my dad is stifling a chuckle. He gives it another couple seconds, and then slams his grip down onto the table. He did make sure not to hurt the kid too much, but it was still a resounding victory. The entire class erupts with laughter and cheers. The kid admits defeat with his tail between his legs. Not a teacher, but a kid I went to high school with would smear his poop all over the walls. Now he's a marksman in the military. They always are marksmen, aren't they? I meant sniper, but wanted to sound cooler, haha. I'm saying the kids who smear poop are always extremely accurate with it. Not a teacher, but one of my friends had a second grade student that would draw her knee down every single day with excruciating details. Buttons on her shoes. Patterns on her socks. If she is wearing a dress or skirt or pants. She had a meeting with the parents during the first grading period and they didn't see anything wrong with it and got angry when she suggested therapy. He kept it up the entire year. Maybe I'm dumb, but how is someone drawing their own leg from the knee down bad? Not really bad. The question was strange thing that happened. I also feel that it would not be that strange if the kid did it once or twice. She probably would not have even noticed, but he did it every day for 4 months. Even when she gave them prompts to draw something different, he still included her legs somewhere in the picture. That's a very strange thing for a 7-year-old. Had a neat kid in my class. Everybody liked him. He was a part of us, but he never spoke a word the entire year. I figured out ways to communicate, but it was limited. Yeah, I raised hell trying to get him some help. Now 50 years later, I'm not so sure he needed help. Why? My guess. Op thinks it's better not to talk to people now. Reversing the question. The weirdest thing a teacher did was I was in this human body course in high school, and during the sex ed portion the teacher blurted out, "I have herpes on my calf," and everyone just looked silently at her. Not a teacher, but a former classmate of mine masturbated in class, stored his load in a pen cap, and after school when no one looked he put it on the door handle of the girls' bathroom. He did this several, he was suspended for it. My mom was teaching her primary 1 class and turns around to see a student biting another student. They drew blood, so the bitten child bit them back. The rest of the class assumed it was okay as she was too shocked to do anything and started to bite one another. I was take your child to work day, so I witnessed it. Show me his penis. There are some students who do that. So many once threw a lunchbox across the class while I was on vacation. I'm a student and I was the one who got detention. I was in Florida. Not a teacher but as a student in health class we were having a rather serious discussion about rape. Our teacher at some point decided to define rape as the involuntary penetration of any orifice on the body. Well, the goofball next to me immediately licked his finger and stuck it in my ear and exclaimed, "I'm raping him." Our teacher cried and went out to the hallway. I can speak for my teachers. It's me. I'm the strangest thing in the classroom. Hey. If you aren't hurting anyone, be weird. Weird people are one of the best things on this world. Wow. Thanks. Though forgive me for being blunt to say that. Regardless of what anyone thinks. If I'm weird then so be it. What of it? People's perception of another never stay the same forever. And it won't stop me from doing what I have to do. Not a teacher but saw a guy straight up masturbating at the back of the class. I am not a teacher but I have a good story about crazy speep my classmates have done. First one was a kid got hit with a flying banana peel and proceeded to hurl a chair against a window shattering it and showering me in glass shards. However, my personal fave is this one. We had two religion teachers. One was the stereotypical extremely strict Christian teacher and the other was really chill and actually wanted us to discuss religion and not have it be reading the Bible out loud learning every word by heart. Anyway, everyone wanted to be in the chill teacher's lessons cause I mean who wouldn't, so kids did some pretty crazy stuff to be licked out of the strict teacher's class. One kid in particular would stand on his desk yelling out "Hail Satan," and this happened every single religion lesson till per headmaster gave in changed his class. Needless to say he became a saint after. Special ed teacher here. Caught this one dude whacking his meat stick too. I kid you not. Pictures of naked women eating cheeseburgers while he was chugging Mountain Dew. Did you mean teachers of Reddit? Because you actually said teacher is of Reddit. Teachers of Reddit. Find an alien bitter. Preferably one from Mars considering he's a lil obsessed with it. I had one student years ago who decided to use apostrophes to make words plural. I taught this student that apostrophes are used to denote possession. Or to make informal contractions when writing. Every time you use an apostrophe to make a word plural, a puppy dies. Somewhere there will be a Reddit post asking students what is the strangest thing a teacher told you and a student replying that their teacher told them a puppy dies if you make a spelling error. One of my students ate a Kleenex during class. He was 17 years old. I was teaching English in Japan to a bunch of sweet cute lil 5th graders. We were learning about greeting gestures from around the world: Japan, bow; America, handshake; France, kiss, etc. And I asked the kids if they knew any others. This one very diligent smart student said she knew a gesture, so I asked her to show us. And she flat out did the Hitler salute. She said she didn't know where or how she learned it. The other kids started copying her. I was flabbergasted. Not a teacher. But on the last day of my senior year, two students were hard-lining coke off their desks. They tried to act like nothing was happening, but failed miserably. I volunteered at a school trip for my son's class. My wife and I were given two of the problem kids because the teacher knew we had teenagers of our own and figured we could handle it. Problem kid 1 was just a bit of a troublemaker. Problem kid 2 didn't speak English. I barely speak Spanish, so this ought to be fun. Turns out problem kid 1 spoke fluent Spanish. He tried to test us in the first few minutes, so I said, "Hey, you translate for your friend here and don't give me any trouble." He was good as gold the rest of the day. Most problem kids are fine if you give them a responsibility to focus their efforts. End of the day he comes over and goes, "Hey Mr. Zerby." I think he's lying. He speaks English, you know. Went to problem kid 2 and said, hey, since you've all been so good today, we're going to buy some ice cream, want some? Yes please. He communicated in English the remainder of the day. Told the teacher. You realize kid 2 speaks perfect English, right? He had apparently been playing the long con the entire school year. Little speep lol. I knew a guy who pissed in the classroom trash can junior year of high school. The teacher was a nice guy. Just didn't care for his job. Didn't really deserve that either. I'm not sure what happened to the guy either. I'm a student, but one time in second grade a boy sitting next to got up from his seat. Started jumping up and down. Occasionally pulling down his pants for a couple seconds to flash his penis at me. They wrote in Garshik with flowers. Not a teacher but story from a friend of mine and I kinda know him. Okay. So basically he was your average troublemaker. But I swear to God this kid knows no fear. He would crazy crap like jump off a top of playground like on the equipment with no warning. He fell out of his chair multiple times a day. And my friend said once while she delivering some supplies to front office she was witnessing this kid in detention throwing pencils and paper balls at the secretary. Okay, final story. One time this kid got on top his desk and yelled this. G.A. Marcus. Watch as I. JAMARCUS commit JAMARCUS side. And I swear to God this kid jumped from his desk and face planted into the floor. Pooped. Edited to add in that I teach kindergarten. Happy Cake Day. I work in a toddler classroom. Everything is either strange or gross. One time someone used an apostrophe to pluralize a noun. Hacked NASA to install Shrek 5.